She just won her third-round match in Cincinnati. But when Mirra Andreeva heard the news of Alex Eala's exit, the Russian sensation was left completely stunned. And her reaction has the tennis world buzzing. "I went almost 2 weeks without picking up a racket," Andreeva had confessed just days earlier. But it wasn't her own break that had everyone talking. It was her disbelief that the Filipina phenomenon, who had been on a tear across North America, had fallen just one win short of another top 10 scalp. The 19-year-old Roland Garros champion, who herself had needed time to recalibrate after her Grand Slam breakthrough, couldn't believe what had happened in Cincinnati. With both players seated in the top 20 and both carrying Grand Slam momentum, their paths were supposed to cross. Instead, one exit sent shockwaves through the tournament. What did Andreeva say about Eala's exit that left the tennis world stunned? The clock had long since passed midnight. The 11,614-seat center court at the Lindner Family Tennis Center was still packed, the sea of Philippine flags refusing to disappear. And at the center of it all, Alex Eala stood at the service line, fighting to keep her dream alive. But when the final point was played, the dream run in Cincinnati was over. The third-round clash between Eala and World No. 10 Amanda Anisimova had everything. A 20-minute, 13-deuce marathon game that became the turning point of the match. A first-set victory that had the Filipino fans roaring, and a second-set collapse that shifted the momentum permanently. The 21-year-old Filipina had given everything she had in a 2-hour, 28-minute battle, but it wasn't enough. The match began with Eala in complete control. Both players held serve through the first 4 games, though Eala had already signaled her intentions with a breakpoint in the 4th game that Anisimova barely survived. Then came the marathon 5th game, 20 minutes and 11 seconds of relentless tennis, featuring 13 deuces and 8 breakpoint opportunities for the American. Anisimova had her chances, but Eala refused to break. She fended off every attack, held serve, and took a 3-2 lead that sent the Filipino crowd into a frenzy. The Filipina was just getting started. Anisimova finally broke through in the 7th game, breaking Eala at love to seize a 4-3 advantage. But the Filipina responded with a 3-game surge that showcased her trademark resilience, breaking back immediately in the 8th game, holding serve to regain the lead, and applying pressure on Anisimova's serve in the 10th game to close out the hour-long opener 6-4. "I know Alex is such a great player and such a fighter," Anisimova would later say. "I knew it was going to be a really tough match." But in the second set, the momentum shifted. Both players held serve through the first 6 games. Eala had built another lead, going up 3-2. Then Anisimova claimed the first break of the set to move ahead 4-3. This time, the American consolidated, holding serve in the 8th game and forcing a decider. The solitary break was the difference, and the former world number 3 had found her rhythm. Eala made a statement in the deciding set. She held serve in the first game, then broke Anisimova to take a 2-0 lead, capping the run with back-to-back forehand winners that brought the Filipino crowd to its feet. It looked like another top 10 scalp was within reach. The turning point came in the 5th game of the 3rd set, when Eala appeared poised to extend her advantage after taking a 40-15 lead, only to drop the next 4 points and allow Anisimova to surge ahead at 3-2. From there, the American never looked back. Anisimova won the next 5 games, breaking Eala 3 times before sweeping the final 6 games of the match to seal a 4-6, 6-4, 6-2 victory. Eala, who had started the tournament with a dominant 6-1, 3-0 walkover win over Elena Gabriela Rus, saw her 5-match winning streak against top 10 opponents come to an end. The loss denied Eala a 10th career victory over a top 10 opponent. Her record against top 10 players now stands at 7-3 in 2026 and 9-5 overall. When the final point was played at 12:18 a.m., the Filipino fans who had packed the stadium stood and applauded their heartbroken hero. They had stayed past midnight, waved their flags until their arms ached, and chanted "Laban Alex" until their voices gave out. Even in defeat, the Eala effect was on full display. And across the draw, another young star had just advanced to the next round. Mirra Andreeva, the 19-year-old Roland Garros champion and world No. 5, had secured her place in the round of 16 after beating Indonesia's Janice Chen. But when she heard the news of Eala's exit, she was left stunned. Her reaction would soon have the tennis world buzzing. She had just advanced to the round of 16 in Cincinnati. But when Mirra Andreeva sat down to talk about her own journey, the Russian sensation made a confession that stunned the tennis world. "I went almost 2 weeks without picking up a racket." The words came during a Tennis Channel interview, delivered with the kind of honesty that had made the 19-year-old Roland Garros champion one of the sport's most compelling personalities. Andreeva, the world number 5 and the tournament's 5th seed, had just beaten Indonesia's Janice Chen 6-1, 7-6 to secure her spot in the next round. But when the conversation turned to her post-Wimbledon break, her answer revealed a side of the game that fans rarely see. No tennis, no racket, nothing. It was the best moment of the year. The confession was jarring. Here was a player who had just won her first Grand Slam title at Roland Garros, who had risen to No. 5 in the world, who was already being mentioned as a future number 1. And yet, the best part of her year had been the 11 days she spent away from the sport entirely. "I spent a lot of time with my family, with my dog, whom I hadn't seen for a very long time, and also with my friends," Andreeva explained. She had attended Daria Kasatkina's wedding and caught up with people she hadn't seen in months. The break was deliberate. A chance to reset mentally after the whirlwind of her Grand Slam breakthrough. But the return wasn't easy. To be honest, coming back, starting to train again, wasn't easy. That was the downside of resting so much. "I ran out of breath after 5 minutes hitting from the baseline and thought, 'Oh my God, what's happening?'" The Russian admitted it took about a week to regain her rhythm and feel comfortable on court again. "After about a week, I started to regain my usual rhythm and feelings on the court, and I thought, thank God, I feel good again." The confession resonated with anyone who had ever needed a break. For Andreeva, whose ascent had been so rapid that she barely had time to process her own success, the 11-day pause was a necessary reset. She had won 6 WTA titles, including her first Grand Slam, and had reached the semifinals of the French Open in 2024. The weight of expectation had been building. But Andreeva's candor also revealed something about the player she had become. When asked about the nerves that accompanied her run in Cincinnati, her response was refreshingly honest. "I think it's me that provokes those thoughts and nerves. No one else does it. I have to be the one to try to get them out of my head," she said. She made a point of being aggressive, even at the risk of making mistakes. "I prefer to make a mistake than to hesitate. At one point, I felt like I was starting to slice, to do lobs, and to play in a way that was too defensive, but I wanted to be more aggressive. Today was all about forcing myself to really do what I needed to do." The contrast with the player who had just exited the tournament was striking. Across the draw, Alex Eala had also been dealing with the weight of expectation. The 21-year-old Filipina had carried the hopes of an entire nation on her shoulders for 3 weeks, from Washington to Toronto to Cincinnati. She had won her first WTA title, reached the 4th round of Wimbledon, and climbed to a career-high number 20 ranking. But the exhaustion had finally caught up with her. And yet, Eala's response to her own exit was a study in perspective. Her first social media post after the loss wasn't about forehands, missed opportunities, or what comes next. Instead, she posted a light-hearted moment with her close friend Zeynep Sönmez, captioning the image, "The Turkish player, who had also been eliminated by Anisimova in the previous round, was the perfect person to share the moment with." The friendship between Eala and Sönmez had become one of the most genuine on tour. They had faced each other at the Abu Dhabi Open in February, where Eala had beaten her close friend 6-4, 6-3. After the match, Eala had said, "I'm so honored to share the court with one of my closest friends, Zeynep. I admire her so much. Our friendship goes beyond tennis." Andreeva's confession about her 11-day break and Eala's lighthearted post both captured something essential about the sport. Tennis is relentless. The grind of the tour can wear down even the most resilient players. But the ability to step away, to laugh, to find joy beyond the court, that might be the most valuable skill of all. Andreeva had found her balance through rest. Eala had found hers through friendship. And as both players prepared for the US Open, they carried with them the knowledge that tennis, for all its demands, was only part of the story. The draw had set it up perfectly. The tennis world was buzzing. And then, in the span of a single match, everything changed. Mirra Andreeva and Alex Eala were supposed to meet in Cincinnati. Instead, one exit sent shockwaves through the tournament. The 19-year-old Roland Garros champion and the 21-year-old Filipina sensation were on a collision course in the WTA 1000 draw. Andreeva, the world number 5 and tournament's 5th seed, had been cruising through her side of the bracket. Eala, the number 17 seed, had been tearing through the North American swing with a vengeance. Their potential meeting in the later rounds would have been a matchup between two of the sport's brightest young stars, a passing of the torch, a glimpse into the future of women's tennis. But the future would have to wait. Eala's heartbreaking 4-6, 6-4, 6-2 loss to Amanda Anisimova ended her Cincinnati run. The match, which stretched past midnight, saw the Filipina win the first set and take a 2-0 lead in the decider before Anisimova stormed back with 6 consecutive games. The dream matchup with Andreeva was over before it could begin. Andreeva, meanwhile, had been fighting her own battles. The Russian had just advanced to the round of 16 with a 6-1, 7-6 victory over Janice Jen. But her path to Cincinnati had been anything but smooth. After winning her first Grand Slam title at Roland Garros, Andreeva had taken an 11-day break from tennis. No racket, no practice, nothing. It was the best moment of the year, she confessed, but the return had been brutal. I ran out of breath after 5 minutes hitting from the baseline. The contrast between the two players' trajectories was striking. Eala had been the busiest player on the WTA Tour over the past 3 weeks. Washington, Toronto, Cincinnati. She had won her first title, beaten 9 top 10 opponents, and carried the hopes of an entire nation. Andreeva, by contrast, had stepped back, rested, and returned with renewed clarity. I think finding that good balance works really well, she said, speaking of her mental reset. But what stunned the tennis world wasn't just the match result. It was what both players did next. Andreeva, when asked about her nerves, delivered a confession that revealed her maturity. I think it's me that provokes those thoughts and nerves, no one else does it. I have to be the one to try to get them out of my head, she said. She made a point of being aggressive, even at the risk of mistakes. I prefer to make a mistake than to hesitate. Across the draw, Eala's response was just as revealing. Her first social media post after the loss wasn't about forehands, missed opportunities, or what comes next. Instead, she shared a light-hearted moment with her close friend Zeynep Sönmez, captioning the image, "Matchy fighty." The friendship between Eala and Sönmez had become one of the most genuine on tour. When they faced each other at the Abu Dhabi Open in February, Eala had made a point of celebrating her friend after beating her 6-4, 6-3. "I'm so honored to share the court with one of my closest friends, Zeynep," she said afterward. "I admire her so much. Our friendship goes beyond tennis." There was also a peculiar connection between the two friends. Before Anisimova faced Eala, she had to get through Sönmez. The American defeated the Turk in straight sets in the second round. Both friends had their Cincinnati runs ended by the same opponent, and both found a way to laugh about it. For Andreeva, the path forward was clear. She would face Marta Kostyuk in the round of 16, a rematch of their Roland Garros semifinal, where Andreeva had emerged victorious. The Russian was determined to keep her aggressive mindset, even as the weight of expectation grew. For Eala, the focus shifted to New York. The US Open, which begins August 30 at Flushing Meadows, was the final Grand Slam of the year. She had already won her first WTA title, reached the 4th round of Wimbledon, and climbed to a career-high ranking. The loss in Cincinnati was a setback, but it was not the end. What would you do if the match everyone was waiting for never happened? For Mirra Andreeva and Alex Eala, the answer was the same. They would keep fighting, keep believing, and keep proving that the journey was far from over. The collision course that never happened in Cincinnati would have to wait, perhaps for the U.S. Open, where two of the sport's brightest young stars could finally share the same court. The loss was devastating. The dream run in Cincinnati was over. But when Alex Eala opened her phone after the match, she found something that made her smile. A message from one of her closest friends on tour. And the peculiar connection between the two players stunned the tennis world. Zeynep Sönmez, the Turkish world number 55, had also been eliminated from the Cincinnati Open. Her conqueror? The same Amanda Anisimova who had just beaten Eala. The American defeated Sönmez in straight sets in the second round before taking down the Filipina sensation in the third. The coincidence was not lost on the two friends. Eala shared a light-hearted moment with Sönmez on social media, posting a photo of the pair with the caption, "Matchy." The playful post captured the unique bond between two players who had experienced the exact same heartbreak and found a way to laugh about it. The friendship between Eala and Sönmez had become one of the most genuine on the WTA Tour. Earlier this year at the Abu Dhabi Open in February, the two had faced each other in the round of 16. Eala emerged victorious 6-4, 6-3, but her post-match comments revealed just how much the friendship meant to her. "I'm so honored to share the court with one of my closest friends, Zeynep," Eala said after the match. "I admire her so much. Our friendship goes beyond tennis." The words were not just lip service. In an era where rivalries often overshadow relationships, Eala and Sönmez had built something different, a genuine connection that survived the pressure of competition. They had been close before they faced each other, and the result didn't change that. The peculiar connection between the two players extended even further. Both Eala and Sönmez had their Cincinnati runs ended by the same opponent, Anisimova, the former world number 3 and two-time Grand Slam finalist. Sönmez fell to the American in the second round, while Eala's loss came one round later in a match that stretched past midnight. The matchy post was more than just a joke. It was a testament to the power of friendship in a sport that often isolates its players. Eala and Sönmez had found a way to share the disappointment of defeat, to laugh at the strange coincidence that had brought them to the same result, and to remind each other that tennis was only part of their story. For Eala, the friendship with Sönmez was one of the bright spots in a week that ended in heartbreak. The loss to Anisimova had been brutal, a 2-hour, 28-minute battle that saw her win the first set, take a 2-0 lead in the decider, and then lose the final 6 games of the match. The defeat denied her a 10th career win over a top 10 opponent, dropping her record against the world's elite to 7-3 in 2026 and 9-5 overall. But the message from Sönmez reminded her that she was not alone. The friendship between the two players had been forged over months of shared experiences on the tour. They had traveled to the same tournaments, shared locker rooms, and supported each other through victories and defeats. They had celebrated each other's successes and commiserated through losses. And when the strange coincidence of their Cincinnati exits brought them together, they chose laughter over frustration. The tennis world took notice. Fans who followed both players appreciated the authenticity of the friendship. In a sport where rivalries often define careers, Eala and Sönmez had proven that competition and camaraderie could coexist. What would you do if you and your closest friend lost to the same opponent in the same tournament? For Alex Eala and Zeynep Sönmez, the answer was simple. They would laugh, they would post a photo, and they would remind themselves that their friendship was bigger than any single match. Because they knew that the bond they shared was more valuable than any victory, and that when the heartbreak faded, the friendship would remain. The match everyone was waiting for never happened. But as Alex Eala packed her bags for New York, she knew that the U.S. Open would be a chance to write a new chapter. And across the draw, Mirra Andreeva was thinking the same thing. The loss in Cincinnati was a setback, but it was not the end. Eala's record against top 10 players now stands at 7-3 in 2026 and 9-5 overall, a testament to her rapid rise. She had already won her first WTA Tour title in Washington, reached the 4th round of Wimbledon, and climbed to a career-high number 20 ranking. Now she was shifting her focus to the U.S. Open, where the final Grand Slam of the year awaited at Flushing Meadows. For Andreeva, the road to New York was equally compelling. The 19-year-old Russian, who won her first Grand Slam title at Roland Garros earlier this year, had advanced to the round of 16 in Cincinnati with a 6-1, 7-6 victory over Janice Jen. But her confession about taking an 11-day break after Wimbledon, no tennis, no racket, nothing, revealed the mental toll of her rapid ascent. It was the best moment of the year, she admitted. The friendship between Eala and Sonmez, meanwhile, had become one of the most genuine on the WTA Tour. When Eala and the Turkish player faced each other at the Abu Dhabi Open in February, Eala had made a point of celebrating her friend after beating her 6-4, 6-3. "I'm so honored to share the court with one of my closest friends, Zeynep," Eala said afterward. "I admire her so much. Our friendship goes beyond tennis." And when both players were eliminated by the same opponent, Amanda Anisimova, they found a way to laugh about it. Eala shared a light-hearted moment with Sonmez on social media, posting a photo of the pair with the caption, "Matchy." The playful post captured the unique bond between two players who had experienced the exact same heartbreak. Now, both Eala and Andreeva were setting their sights on the final Grand Slam of the year. What would you do if the match everyone was waiting for never happened? For Mirra Andreeva, the answer was simple. Keep fighting, keep believing, and keep that aggressive mindset that had carried her to a Grand Slam title. For Alex Eala, the answer was just as clear. Rest, recover, and come back stronger at the U.S. Open. Because they both knew that the collision course that never happened in Cincinnati could still happen in New York, where the biggest stage of all was waiting.